Carol Stinquini is vice president, and Aaron Sykes is president of the Lake Pillsbury Alliance. They've actually been working for several years on this proposal by PG&E, but backed by many familiar environmentalist organizations and groups that are advocating along with them to remove the dam at Lake Pillsbury. Is it Pillsbury Lake or Lake Pillsbury?
Lake Pillsbury.
Lake Pillsbury. Okay.
Yep.
So um, the Lake Pillsbury region is up kind of crossing over the Sonoma Lake and Mendocino County regions in Mendocino National Forest area. There is a lot of OHV routes in that region. If you look on Onyx, I was just kind of doing some route scouting over the last few days, and it's a very rich area in regard to the types of terrain and the types of trails that are open. I know that we have many clubs that are very highly active in that region who do adopt a trail work and also have annual and cyclical club outings in this Lake Pillsbury region. So the immediate impact on OHV specifically is not the biggest issue in that the removal of the dam obviously won't remove the trails themselves. But what it will eliminate is all the camping around Lake Pillsbury. Carol and Aaron will go into more detail on that. It will also increase catastrophic risk of wildfire and decimate the businesses in the area that offer the services that support people who go into that area of the mountains to recreate. So there's so many layers of impacts. It's hard to summarize it quickly. Carol and Aaron have a ton of great resources to help us be quickly informed on this and to take action. So without further ado, Carol and Aaron, please take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for having us tonight.
Yep, thank you.
And I wanted to say Aaron's not only on our board, but he's also a member of the fire department in the Lake Pillsbury area. So he's and very active OHV, all other kinds of things. So he can represent a lot of the recreation that occurs up there. I know this is a loaded subject and it could take hours. And I've tried to really prep for this meeting to condense it into the simplest way I can to get across to you what's happening. So PG&E owns the Potter Valley Project. They've owned it since 1930. Potter Valley Project spans two counties. The Scott Dam Lake Pillsbury area is in Lake County. The water diversion and hydropower plant is in Mendocino County in Potter Valley. The purpose of the project is hydropower. So the way that happens is water is transferred from the Eel River to the Russian River into the hydropower plant. The water is distributed throughout Mendocino, Sonoma County, on down to North Marin. The Potter Valley and all of the upper Eel River or upper Russian River area is very dependent on the water that comes from the Potter Valley Project. The removal of Scott Dam in Lake Pillsbury has profound environmental effects, both to the Eel and the Russian River, in our opinion. The area up in Lake Pillsbury is known to be very hot and dry during the summer. Flows usually end up down to a trickle through the Lake Pillsbury Basin. And so water to divert in the summertime is impossible. We got here because the FERC was ordered, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, ordered PG&E to adopt reasonable and prudent alternatives for the Eel River fishery in 2004. When that occurred, PG&E's water diversions were at 150,000 acre feet and they dropped to 60,000 acre feet. When that happened, PG&E became unprofitable. So flash forward, here we are now. PG&E was up for relicensure in 2017, 2018. They were actually going to pursue relicensing, but this tremendous pressure came on them from the fishery environmental folks, from the fishery agencies like NIMS, NOAA, California Fish and Game, and the momentum just built and built and built until PG&E finally said, never mind, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to abandon the project. So from that point to where we are now, Jared Huffman had formed Congressman Huffman, a two-basin solution ad hoc committee. And that ad hoc committee was to find a two-basin solution if PG&E didn't relicense. And basically, in a nutshell, it ended up a series of negotiations to where we are today. Humboldt and the fisheries and Eel River said, we can go along with continued water diversions if Sonoma, Mendocino, you agree that the dams can come down. And therefore, nobody fought to save Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury except our organization and the Lake County supervisors. So today, where we are, PG&E has filed a surrender, not filed it yet. They have a final draft surrender application that they've circulated to the public. In that draft surrender plan, there are two actions. One is to remove Scott Dam and eliminate Lake Pillsbury. And the other action is to allow the new Eel Russian Project Authority, which is an organization, a joint powers of agreement that was formed by Sonoma County and Mendocino County, and to authorize them to build a new water diversion in Potter Valley. And they'll be allowed to do some water diversions during high flow months. And so with that, those two actions, we will lose Scott Dam and Lake Pillsbury unless somebody intercedes, unless the electeds get more involved, and unless another path is revealed that we can follow to find an alternative to removal of the dam. That's as fast as I can do it. I hope it gets the point across. Any questions from there? How does this affect you? As Rose pointed out, in the plan, PG&E will remove, as it's written today, PG&E will remove all of the campgrounds in the Lake Pillsbury area and all the facilities that are associated to it. Well, all of the campgrounds are at that northern end of Lake Pillsbury, northern and western, east, little bit of eastern. Once the lake is gone, they're going to circle a sediment-filled lake bed. There will be nothing there. So they're going to pull those facilities out. But what they haven't done is said to us what they will do. Will they rebuild campgrounds in places that will be convenient for OHV users, for camping users, for people that want to use the river, for people that want to hike, whatever? None of those types of mitigation plans are in this current surrender plan. And so we have grave concerns, number one, about the dam being removed, but number two, that we won't have a recreational area that is in the heart and the center of the Mendocino National Forest. I also want to point out there are 300 homes in this area. There's an 80-person private campground. There are 225 slots of campgrounds around the lake. So it's not insignificant, and we are the hub of the National Forest. And then the last thing I'll just say is all recreational users, whether you're a homeowner, an OHV, a backpacker, whatever, they're all going to be vulnerable to fire. We've had two of the biggest fires in California history in that area, the 2018 Mendocino Complex Fire, the 2020 August Complex Fire. It was Lake Pillsbury that provided a physical boundary to slow those fires. And it was Lake Pillsbury's immediate source of water that enabled us to have air attacks and land attacks to put those fires down. And it wasn't just in the Lake Pillsbury area. Some of that occurred from Lake Pillsbury to Mendocino to Glenn County to help put those fires out.
Yeah, Carolyn, if I can speak on that for a second.
Yeah, please do.
When we had the Mendocino complex coming down, I see a lot of people from the Santa Rosa area coming down the side of Whole Mountain at us. We ran water trucks 24 hours a day for 7 days out of Lake Pillsbury. And we pulled millions and millions of gallons to stop that fire where it was. And a lot of people don't realize, if we had to go to Lake Mendocino with a 3,500 gallon water truck, that's a 4+ hour round trip.
Right.
Instead, they're getting it 20 to 25 minutes from where they need it. I mean, that was a huge deal in the firefighting world.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that the roads, there's issues with roads. There's right now, one decent way in through Mendocino County. You can get in through Lake County. It isn't the easiest route, but in a fire situation, of course, we're very concerned about depending on where your location is, how you can get out, and you won't have a lake to go into to help protect yourself. So that's a big issue for the Mendocino National Forest, and certainly for anybody that comes to the Pillsbury Basin if we lose our lake.
Yeah, we're still seeing, I don't know how long a lot of these local guys I'm seeing have been going up there. I've been going up there for 35 years, and it started when I was 16 years old in a Toyota 4x4 camping at Oak Flats Campground. And being on the fire department and being around the area a lot, I mean, I still see that. I see that next generation up there in their, well, what I would used to call a $2,000 truck, but now a $6,000 beater truck, you know, still enjoying the trails and learning four-wheel driving and looking at Powder House with intimidation, you know, and looking for guidance on how to get up it. And that's still going on. That new generation's coming up.
Yes.
And it's all centered around these campgrounds that are going to go away.
And I think that is really an important point, because if we lose the lake, those of us that have strong ties to the basin want to see recreation continue. We need it for us. I'm very blessed. My grandfather had the foresight in the late 30s to camp in Lake Pillsbury, and he loved it so much that he learned about the home site area up there, and he secured a lot. Our first permit was 1941. We've raised 5 generations there. It would be devastating to all the families like mine that have used Lake Pillsbury for so many years to see it just go to a wasteland. We've got to either fight to keep that dam, and then if that doesn't work, we have to fight harder to make sure there's something left behind for all of us.
Yeah, something else that was very infuriating about the process is we were railroaded out of any of the discussions about what was going to happen. Lake Pillsbury Alliance, nobody who had a stake in the basin, and for the most part, Lake County, were kept out of all of these discussions. But all the environmentalist groups, Caltrout, all those people were allowed in and to have input.
We were actually, I think it was before you joined the board here, we were physically told to leave one of the early meetings, the Lake Pillsbury Alliance. I mean, it's another good point. Lake County is the only group of elected officials that has stood up for saving Lake Pillsbury. And that's pretty daunting for us if you think about this. Not Sonoma County Board of Supervisors, not the Mendocino County, not our senator, not our congressman, not our governor. We have hit every single level of government trying to get us support. And it's been very difficult for us. We've been at this now for almost 8 years.
Well, this all feels remarkably similar to what we face with national monument proposals and the strategies that are used, the timeline and the tactics. So I think these are things that many of us are familiar with from perhaps not dam removal proposals, but things like national monuments. Something I wanted to touch on that you had both mentioned earlier with relationship to the risk of increased fire is that another issue that we face in the motorized recreation community is that when a major wildfire goes through an area, if a significant part of the landscape is destroyed and needs restoration, oftentimes rehabilitation and maintenance of the OHV routes in that area are not a top priority, and we may or may not see those routes continue as open after restoration occurs. And so in some of our prior meetings, we've heard from Dell Albright and others with the PORA organization that, you know, they've solely focused on going in after these wildfires to restore the trails and make sure that they do remain open. And so that's something to consider here too. It's a different cause for the concern, but the same outcome that we're facing on the other side of it. So I just want to add that in regard to the relationship between this dam removal and how it impacts not only general recreation, but recreation specifically.
And we have a very active trails.org. Dean Joyner was heading that up for a while, and others. Aaron, do you know if that's been active recently or?
Yeah, I know Dean's been putting it together, and I know Dell's been a part of it. I never thought to reach out to Dell. I have a decent relationship with him, but that thought didn't cross my mind.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
recommend reaching out to Dell. He might be able to rally much more support in the region as well.
Okay, good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, well, Carol, and Aaron, can you share with us what your campaign looks like? What are you doing? What are you asking us to do to support you in this issue?
At this point, there are a couple of things. One, we just launched tonight, actually, a little instant button that folks can push to populate an email automatically
Mm,
to PG&E to comment on their draft surrender plan. It's fully customizable, so you can put your own 2 cents in there. We want them to sign off, but it's a way for people that don't know how to get started to comment to get just a generalized email. It focuses on all 3 counties. It doesn't just specifically focus on the Lake Pillsbury Basin, but we tried to be as broad as possible, and then let our people that want to comment get in there and personalize it to meet their needs. It's just a 1 click to open the email and a 1 click to send it. So that's going to be really good. We'll be pushing that out. The other thing is we do have a subscriber email list. If you're interested, get on that list. We do send out updates and action alerts. Not a lot of them. We don't bury people with it, but when we need your help, we ask for it. And then we have a fairly active social media campaign, so you can keep aware of what's going on there. And we really need people to write the highest level state and federal elected officials. We're not going to get anywhere locally anymore. We have to get as high as we can possibly get and get attention on this project. Our goal is to get elected official at a high level to say, hey, whoa, let's just wait a minute. Let's see what it looks like to analyze Scott Dam and the potential to modernize it, retrofit it seismically and with fish passage, and see if we can't salvage that and put it under control of a state or federal agency. An example would be, we're not promoting any particular plan at this point, but a good example would be in Mendocino and Sonoma County. U.S. Army Corps has 2 dams, Lake Mendocino, Lake Sonoma. Those are major parts of our water system. It makes a lot of sense to modernize, retrofit Scott Dam and save it. Doesn't have to be a hydro project, but save it and put it under Army control, Army Corps. And then you have 3 dams in the same water system, pushing water down the Eel River and over the Russian as it's needed, supporting the entire region and community. That is a far-fetched goal, but it's one that could be achievable if we got the right elected officials to buy into it. We are at a turning road, and it will take a Hail Mary to get us through this. And that's the kind of Hail Mary we need. So getting political attention, meaningful political attention, is what we need most. Communities, your community could organize a letter writing campaign. Everybody that's even in this meeting knows 10 people that could write letters, encourage them to write letters, help them write the letters. And any organization that's supporting us. CalDER has been very helpful to us as well. But to get people to write, get the volume up, because we've been able to be minimized every other way.
mm. Um,
Hey, excuse me real quick. Carol, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
My name's Tom Corning. I'm the vice president of the Mendocino 4x4 Club, and I love the area you're talking about. We go 4-wheeling up there all the time. Tons
Awesome.
of trails, tons of hunting. I love just going up there to the airport, watching the elk. I mean, I love that lake. I think the local community in Mendocino, I work in law enforcement in Mendocino. I'm an administrator in a law enforcement agency there. And I feel like the locals support wanting to keep that lake. But I feel like a lot of the media just makes it sound like it's like a done deal. Like we
They
don't have,
do.
yeah.
That's what they want you to believe, Tom, that it is a done deal. And
Well, what I'm saying, I have some pretty, as an administrator in a law enforcement agency in Mendocino County, I have some connections with some media outlets. If I can get your contact and maybe like set up an interview or something where you can get your message across out to the locals that would probably spend the time writing letters or emails, if that's a possibility, because I do have some connections with some media outlets, and I'd like to help as much as I could.
That'd be appreciated. We'll take all the help we can get.
Yeah.
We have been minimized by a lot of the local medias, particularly Press Democrat. We've had a lot of Mendocino Voice has done the best for us in terms of at least getting the facts out there pretty well. But it's true. Stories, when we submit stories to a lot of these outlets, they're not published. And we've even reached out to the Chronicle. We've reached out to Wayne Friedman. We've reached out in a number of different ways.
Yeah, it's sad. I mean, I've read so many articles where they're just make it sound like it's a done deal and don't waste your time voicing your opinion and move on.
Yes, and it is way down the road. There's no doubt about it. But PG&E just said in their presentation this past week, the decision is not retractable, but it's not for PG&E. But it is possible, even now, all the way until the federal government issues its final order, that it is possible to transfer the license elsewhere. It's just you have to have the desire to do that. That means you have to have the support to do that. And that would be the only way we would have a Hail Mary, is if we could get PG&E to change its recommendation in its surrender plan.
Carol, I'm curious, the area where Lake Pillsbury sits, is that within what type of land? National Forest, all privately held?
Mendocino National Forest.
Okay, have you connected with and is there any official position by Mendocino National Forest on this issue?
Mendocino National Forest takes the position that they cannot advocate for the area per se. Their job is to land manage. And so their advocacy work is really minimized. They are more looking at the future. They're looking at planning. They're going to be watching for mitigation. They're concerned about the lands they manage, but they do not take a position.
I'm just wondering if it might be, well, and you might have already done this. I've read through some of your stuff. You're directing people to reach out to folks at the state and national level. But since we do have some new faces in Congress and the federal administration, there may be a way to push this a little further and at minimum have a temporary hold on the deadline that you're currently facing. So while I know you've been at this for years and I've been there and I know it can feel like a Hail Mary at the end, but looking for extension so that there is time to evaluate other alternatives if those alternatives have never surfaced and been considered seriously, that is also an avenue that could be pursued.
It could be. And here's the timeline that's, I know we're taking a lot of time, but this is really important to us.
Go ahead. It's all right.
The timeline right now is PG&E is doing this public comment period, public comments end March 3rd. The official filing of the surrender application will occur in July 29th. And that's when PG&E officially files with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. And then it'll take a couple of years for them to organize. There are going to be a lot of environmental reviews that will be required. There's going to be a lot of back and forth. And it will be in that period, maybe with the adverse effects, for example. There are hundreds and hundreds of adverse effects that they've listed even in their draft document, that it will cause delays. And that's another thing, is how much can we delay this until we can get those kinds of people in a position of having some voice.
Very good. So I think that there's quite a bit of hope in that timeline and in that picture.
Yeah,
while we only have until March 3rd to make comments, there's a lot that can happen afterwards, and the advocacy doesn't stop March 3rd.
No, I mean, we're in it to see it through and to do what's best for our region, but specifically we're very concerned about the impacts to the basin communities. So, and when I say communities, again, not just talking homeowners, I'm talking about all recreational users. We are a community. People that go to Lake Pillsbury are kind of a special breed. It isn't an easy place to get to, and you have to love that kind of area. So we want it. We want to preserve it and protect it as best we can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Here,
Um,
I have a question. Okay, I work for Southern California Edison, and I worked a lot in hydro with their system. Okay, and we've retired some and we've sold some. Now they're not extending their license. So the question I have is, when they basically say, "Hey, we're releasing this," okay,
Right.
who's releasing it to? And that's what we need to find out, because if they're just releasing their liability of this dam, okay, they're not going to be paid to demo it. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
There's going to be that cost to remove that dam and remove and put everything back to its original stature. So you have to actually see if you can find out who's actually going to be the person or the organization that's going to now take over that dam once they say, "Hey, we're not doing our lease anymore. We're going to not renew it." Now, who's going to be responsible for that transition? That's what you take to your U.S. congressman, okay, your local U.S. congressman, and push it to him now or her. And if they don't want to do anything with it, then you keep pushing it up. And that same letter, you don't change that letter from your U.S. congressman to your next step, and you keep pushing it to every U.S. congressman in a 500-mile radius. Okay, so until you get to a Republican U.S. congressman, okay, and as soon as you get that letter there, and you show that you've sent it to all those now, and then you send me that letter, I can send it to my uncle and say, "Hey, here, all these congressmen have this letter. We want this to be pushed to Army Corps of Engineers." My uncle likes a fight. And if it's a good fight, he'll push it to his guys. My uncle's a retired U.S. congressman, and we can do it. I'm not saying that we can do anything, but that's how you do it. I mean, you just keep sending it to the U.S. congressmen until you get to that Republican. It could be, 500 miles away from you, right? Because you are in a
well,
Democrat
Dennis,
area.
Lake Pillsbury Alliance has actually already outreached, I think, an exhaustive list of congressmen, including Republicans. So that piece is in action. And so maybe this is
Send me
already.
that letter.
I think that it's important to know PG&E, because it's a private company, is on the hook to do this, to remove the dam. They have a fund that I think we've all been paying surcharges in for years to decommission.
Yeah.
The thing that it will be very, very expensive for them. And we watched some interesting things happen at the Klamath, which lead us to wonder if they'll see it through or if they'll try to off it to the state.
Yeah.
And so in the case of the Klamath, that's what they did. It wasn't a surrender like PG&E's is a surrender. The Klamath they were planning on relicensing, and there was so much pressure on them.
Is that Klamath Falls or?
Yeah, Klamath, they took 4 dams out in the Klamath Lake area.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, so that's to be determined, but right now it's a private matter that PG&E is on the hook to remove the dam. You can imagine just the liability alone that they're going to have to come up with to do something like that. But more to come on that one. We probably overstayed our welcome, huh?
No, not at all,
No,
Carol. I
no,
think that
it's
we
all
could probably
good.
talk about this for a very long time. Let's see if anybody else has questions. And yeah, anybody else have questions or thoughts on this issue? I know we have several folks here who do have clubs and also reside in the same area.
I recognize some names of folks that have been active and just commenting social media or, involved in this issue.
What is the name of your group? Because I came in just a small late. Carol?
We're Lake Pillsbury Alliance. We have a website, savelakepillsbury.org. We're on social media. We're on Instagram. We're a small 501c3 grassroots organization. We're all working our butts off, and we can use all the help we can get.
I wrote the president.
Great.
I started at the top.
Yeah, I mean, really, he now with him in office, there's a good choice right there.
Yes, right there.
So
That
in
would
our,
get me.
Well, and
thank you,
that's
Mary,
where
for
we
taking
need,
quick action.
that is where we need help. You know, our focus today, right now, for the next 2 weeks is on our response to this 2,086 page final draft surrender plan. So that's where we are for the next 2 weeks, but we are hoping by putting this link on our website, by getting information out on the website, social media, by all of the people that are interested in our area, sharing that information, that public comments will happen while we're working on our response on their behalf, I will add.
Yeah, Mary or Carol and Aaron, the work that your group has put into this is phenomenal. So in the chat, everyone, I shared a PDF, a 2025 Save Lake Pillsbury flyer that gives a summary and some key instructions on actions that you can take. I've also included a link to their website, a long link as well as a short link at the bottom. And from their website, you can go straight to that button. I love, Carol, that you've got it right there at the top of the homepage. So that makes it an easy submit straight to PG&E. But we want to not just click that button to write to PG&E. We want to also go ahead and make calls and send letters to any elected official, from the Department of Interior,
Right.
certainly the U.S. Department of Agriculture, since this is Mendocino National Forest region, as well as our elected representatives.
Okay.
Those in
I
the
have
area.
to make a plug. Any donation is happily accepted, small, any size, we don't care. Everything is going to our legal consults. So that's what we have to do. And we want to make our responses as strong as they can possibly be, as I've said.
Absolutely. So a strong show of support will help to bolster that position in your litigation.
You bet. Okay. Thanks again, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Carol. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you all for your time.
Yes, we appreciate it.
We'd love to continue following this. I know we won't be meeting again before that March 3rd deadline, but perhaps we can have you back for a revisit on status as things are continuing to unfold.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Good night.
Good night.